All right. Well, I just want to start off by saying again, thank you very much, Karen, for coming to do this for us today. It's kind of a big deal for us. You're a bit of a legend in the space, if you will. The way I usually like to start off my interviews is for people who might not quite know you as well as some other people do. Who is Karen Murphy today?
Karen Murphy today. Karen Murphy's working today. I've got a full-time role with Bowls Australia as the national assistant coach. So, just recently retired 2 years ago from playing internationally after 22 years and, really enjoying my new role and, into the workforce. So it's been good fun.
So we did write down some of your achievements here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 8 World Bowls medals. 4 of them were gold. 4 Commonwealth Games medals, 1 gold, 3 silver, 1 World Bowls Tour title, and 13 Asia Pacific medals, and 8 of them were gold. Among those, do you have one that you could pick out as maybe your favorite one?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I think I've probably got a top 3, if you don't mind, Luke, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be my first world singles title, the gold medal in the singles, where I played Val Smith in Adelaide in 2012. So it was 9 years ago this week, actually. And your famous bowler Kelly McCarrahan was also involved in the singles, I think, in that year. So that was very special. My family were there. The stands were packed. The green was flying. So that was very special. And then probably not in any order from here, but yeah, I was able to back it up 4 years later in Christchurch and win back-to-back world singles, which was really good. Played Kelly in the semi-final there. And the third one would be my gold medal in the pairs in Melbourne at the Commonwealth Games with Lindsay Clark, knee Armitage, in front of a home crowd. So they're probably my top 3. Just moments that you probably will never relive again, I suppose. But so happy to have achieved those things, I guess, and then also with the people that I achieved them with, including family and supporters and friends and teammates.
So over that long-standing career and all those achievements, who would you say was your toughest opponent?
Yeah, I would say Joe Edwards. So Joe's from New Zealand. During my career, I played a lot of singles. So did Joe. So we actually started at the very same time, and we pretty well retired at the same time as well after 22 years. I think I might have done a year more than Joe, but probably went and played through an era over that 22 years where I saw, obviously there was a lot younger singles players playing in the World and Commonwealth Games in the back end of my career. But at the start, there was another lady called Marlene Castle who played 20 years for New Zealand, and she was a gun. She was such a good draw bowler, and she was a really great opponent, still a really good friend of mine. But Joe probably over the majority of that was, we call each other frenemies. So we're friends but enemies on green, and had some really, really great battles. And along with that, singles players-wise, Kelly's, still going really well, really tough opponent. Lena from Malaysia is a great player. Caroline Brown from Scotland. So it was an era where there was a lot of strength, I guess, in the ladies singles.
Just kind of keeping on the same topic of difficulty and tough things. We spoke a little bit about weather conditions and things before the show. What do you think, which country do you think had the toughest conditions you had to play in?
For us, the UK is always a real tough place to play. I've never had the privilege of playing in Canada. I think I just sort of missed when I started. Yeah, so one day, hopefully, I'd like to get over there, or as a coach, or even play over in Canada. But the UK, because our greens in Australia are very well maintained by paid greenkeepers who put a lot of time into them, and you put your bowl down, it goes exactly where it should most of the time, depending on the wind. But the UK's quite uneven. They generally have council greenkeepers and things like that maintain the greens. I remember in Leamington, the first time I went to Leamington in 2004, they had fishing line running down the boundary pegs and the boundary lines of the rink. And at times, the fishing line's touching the grass, but then at other times it's sort of, that far off. So the hills and valleys, like we're in preparation, for Birmingham for next year with our Australian Jackaroo team, we can replicate the pace. So the pace is not a problem. We can get up, no problem, on the heavy greens. It's the hills and valleys and using the use of the mat and trying to stand to the inside to try and miss the runs and things. That's what we're not used to. And it's more of it's a style of play, so we have to change our style of play. Like we're very much touch players, like an indoor game where you just draw to the jack sort of thing. In the UK, it's a different style, and you also adapt your style to the condition of the rink as well, sort of thing. So if you might want to just try and avoid one hand if you can, or play bigger weight. So there's lots in it. So not what we're used to, and it's more, I think, affects us more from a mental point of view in that it's frustrating that the bowls just don't always go where you want them to.
For all our Northern Hemisphere viewers and those in Canada, we know that all too well. It's still frustrating, even though for someone like me that's played for 20 years on the same conditions, it's still frustrating. So I can just imagine what it's like for you guys coming up.
I think it's how you react to it, isn't it? Like it's a total mental thing, and that's something that our players are really working hard on. And I'm looking back as the type of person I'm very much ducks in a row. I like structured things. I'm a list girl and things like that. And so to me it was very frustrating. I had some success on the outdoors in the UK, but it's still very much a challenge. Whereas when you guys or the UK players come over to Australia and you're playing on an 18-second green in the wind, that's challenging too. So yeah.
For the players that look up to you, I know there's a lot of people that look up to Australian players. We see you all the time because a lot of your games are on YouTube or televised or streamed. Especially for women that look up to someone like yourself, what would you attribute to the reason for not only the height of the success that you've had, but the longevity that you had in the sport?
Yeah, I think starting young, starting at 11 years of age with my dad in a sport that, I could sort of share with him was fairly special. My story of my career is quite unique in that, there was very few junior bowlers when I first started. I grew up in a small coastal town 2 hours south of Sydney. There wasn't much to do if you didn't play sport. There wasn't much to do apart from that. So, but I did sort of, I joined an Illawarra Academy of Sport where I only played with young guys. So there was no young girls, and it wasn't cool when in my teens to play bowls at all. So I didn't tell anyone at school, but I was a sports and still am sports mad. So played other sports as well, but I quickly learnt to play that aggressive style of game with the young guys, which was really beneficial to my game, I suppose, because in those days when we wore long white skirts and big ugly hats and things like that, that wasn't cool either. Made sure I got petrol the day before going to bowls in that get up, so I didn't have to get it on the way to bowls. It was. I saw a big change. I've seen a big change in the game over my career of, I started in 85. So, the average age of the Australian women's team when I first got in was probably 60 something. Wow. Now the average age of when I retired, the average age of our Aussie girls team is probably around 27.
Wow.
So, so I guess, looking back, like I hope, you don't think about a legacy until you finish. You don't really realise what you're doing or who you're influencing or encouraging as you play. But I hope in some way that I have been able to encourage a few younger girls in getting into the game and young men. The short formats of the game, barefoot bowls over in Australia, the Commonwealth Games every 4 years, has really heightened the profile of our sport and in the uniform change, like a massive stereotype changer for the sport. Looks like we're playing bowls now compared to when I first started. So, but longevity wise, I think I love the game. I became fairly good fairly quickly. Playing against a lot of older ladies, different style of game, came in probably ruffled a couple of feathers, I would imagine. You know, the older ladies, it wasn't the norm, was it? So, but I was also had a bit of a skill to be quite relatable to that age group as well. And yeah, I guess just that hunger to win. I'm an absolute fighter and hate losing, so I'm super competitive. I wear my heart on my sleeve a fair bit, you know, but yeah, I guess just the passion for the game, and you know, when I decided to retire, you know, I sort of knew it was time. So yeah, new pastures now.
Luke?
You got this one, Daryl.
I got this one. All right. One thing that I've been watching for a while, you have a side project and side business, Karen Murphy Bowls Clinics, and I'm really interested to know what got you to start that up, especially while you were still playing and at the top of your game, and how that has propelled you to where you are today, actually being the assistant coach of the Jackaroos.
Yeah, it's a good question, Daryl. I guess when I was a younger player, and even when I first made the Australian team, there wasn't a lot of really good quality coaching around. So I definitely identified a need for it. I guess that was probably one thing. So I started my business in 2010, and the reason why I started my bowls clinics was, number one, that reason, and number two, I'd actually just missed out on the 2010 Delhi Commonwealth Games. So it was the only games I missed out on for the games. It was a really rough time in my life. I was at the top of my game, you know, number one in Australia and World and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. It wasn't to be at the time. I was in a pretty rough space, and I thought I need something to sort of focus my interest in, you know, somewhere else, and throw my efforts into something else. And I had a conversation with one of the older guys up at Tweed Heads, who was a really good friend of mine, Norm Carmichael, who suggested it to me, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea. You know, there's a real need for it, sort of thing. So the format around the bowls clinics was one-on-one coaching, and then also group training, where I used to travel around and sort of train mostly ladies, but quite a few men as well, and just teach them what, you know, and pass on the knowledge and experience that I've gained, and from what I know of other players as well. And you know, sometimes I think if you're being coached by a club coach or something like that, sometimes, you know, like as great a coaches as these guys can be, sometimes it just takes someone else from outside your square just to say one thing to you, and it might really resonate and think, oh, yep, I'm going to try that, and take someone else to say it differently or show something different. So coaching's a real passion of mine. You know, like I feel like, you know, within my strengths as a person, you know, we do a lot of strengths testing, you know, personality and all these sort of things. And I've done hundreds, you know, not hundreds, but I've done quite a few of those in different courses and things, and they all come up the same, you know, sort of thing. So the qualities, you know, that a lot of our pathways coaches that in Australia here, you know, relate us. So being relatable to the person. I think when you get to the Jackaroo stage, an assistant coach like I am, you know, our Jackaroos know how to play. It's people management. You know, it's really finding what individually what makes those players tick, and in getting the best out of them individually to perform at their best. You know, as a person, you know, if you're happy, if you're in a really good space, if you put the preparation in and you've got that hunger, you know, that's where the spaces are. You know, in times where I've won and had success in my career is when that all comes together, and that's our job to get that out of the players and get the best out of them.
In the past, you've had some experience working with other countries and kind of developing their coaching programs, I believe, along the way. What has it been like working with different countries and seeing them improve?
Yeah, I've worked with a few different countries. When I was on the board of World Bowls for a few years, and was the Asia and Oceania director. So I went to the Cook Islands and did some work with the Cook Islands players, and I've coached in New Zealand with my business, and I've been over to Malaysia, you know, a couple of times. So yeah, like it's really interesting. You know, it's interesting to see how they do it, number one, and then I guess, you know, bringing and implementing new things into their game and getting them to think outside the box a little bit, in how you prepare and how you train, and then how you play the style of game as well. So, bowls to me, is to me 80% mental. It's probably 20% skill and 80% mental. And I say that because we are a unique sport in that we've got so much downtime to think in between shots. It's not like ice hockey where you guys are just on the run, thinking on the run, and sort of and having that skill as well as thinking, on the spot. Bowls isn't like that. You play a bad bowl, you've got a lot of time to dwell on it. So what you do with that time is really, really important, sort of thing. So. So developing your mental game, going through your processes, it's not unlike any other sport. Ice hockey, they would also have processes and things, in the way that they play. Bowls is the same. From the time you pick your bowl up, your processes that you go through, when you step onto the mat, set your feet, pick your line, positive reinforcement, and doing the same thing every time. Rafael Nadal, he's probably OCD process, like his labels is to the front, and he, in the Australian Open, he walks through the N every time before he serves, every single time, does the hair, does the shorts, but that's his process and that works for him. So all sports are the same, and bowls is no different.
I like that you brought up the mental side. We've in Canada have just started pushing that quite a bit, and players have really taken to it and seem to be wanting more. They haven't had it for most of their bowls career, and they're really starting to zone in on the mental aspect, where routines and visualization and all those kind of things play a part. How has that, I guess in Australia, has that been received really well, or is there still people that don't realize just how important that is?
I think there's a lot of people that probably don't realize that unless they learn it. So unless, I guess, you can't really learn the mental side of the game whilst you're playing. I think the mental side of the game is probably learnt from talking to good players, good coaches, and things like that. And I look at the top players in the world. Your Alex Marshalls, your Paul Foster, Ryan Bester, Joe Edwards. The common thing mentally that I think that they've got in common is that they've got very, very good emotional management skills. So they stick to their processes, but when the going gets tough, they don't let themselves get to that point where their emotions take over. Because as soon as you are playing badly or you play a bad shot or something like that, you get emotional, and then a reaction from your emotion naturally is to tighten up physically. So you tighten up through your shoulders, and then you can't get your delivery away. So an effective technique is all about being able to repeat that effective technique and it feeling the same all the time. So they have, mechanisms in place where, when things aren't going so well, whether it be breathing, slowing down, getting back to basics, going in, getting a drinks, just resetting themselves and not letting them get to themselves to that point where they become emotional. Because as soon as you do, you're gone. So that's what I would say. If there's a tip out there for people watching, really work on your mental game and work on managing those emotions really effectively.
It's a great tip.
So something that I think kind of goes hand in hand with mental health and mental strength in the game of bowls is healthy eating and fitness. Obviously, over the years, it's kind of been a question as of if you really need to be the most physically fit or well-fed person, I guess, in the world to be an elite bowler. Do you think that should be more of a focus, or do you think that the way it is okay?
Look, I think it really depends on the individual. So obviously you don't need to be the fittest person to play bowls. However, I think it comes down to the individual. So for me, in my career, I've always kept fit, gone to the gym, eaten really well, even to the point where and I still get, paid out for it by jackaroos and former teammates and things like that. Like, I take a cooking kit away with me every time I go away. We try and stay in apartments. I've got a good knife. I've got a potato peeler. I've got salt and pepper and all this sort of stuff, because when we're away on tour, I love to cook. The girls would all get into a room. I would generally cook, the girls would help, they'd make a salad or something like that, and we made an effort to eat really well while we're away. If you're eating takeaway every night, which you don't normally do at home every night, do you? Why would you do that when you're away playing in one of the world championships or something like that? So with the jackaroos, we've got a bit of a drinking rule as well while we're on tour. So we're really mindful of getting a good sleep, stretching, eating really well, doing the things that you would normally do at home in looking after yourself. And for me, staying fit and reasonably slim was wonderful for your mental health. Yourself when you go to the gym, how great it makes you feel. So those endorphins are released. And for me, my motto was, if I look good and feel good, I'm going to play well. Christmas is coming up in a couple of weeks, everyone at home, there's nothing worse than when we all do it. We all have a few beers and tuck into the food and that, and it just makes you feel terrible. So it's a healthy balance. I've seen players that haven't done that over the years, but for me individually, it really worked and it made me feel great. So if I felt great, I felt confident, and I put the preparation in, and away you go.
Yeah, I've noticed over the years when we go away, for instance, when Luke and I kind of first became really good friends, we were at the World Youth Championships in Broad Beach, and the lunches that were provided were great, but they were so heavy. It was like fish and chips and bangers and mash and all that kind of stuff. You eat that at lunch, and the afternoon is shot because you're so tired and you're just trying to process all that stuff. Healthy eating is awesome, and I've noticed that through your coaching page, you post a lot of great things about healthy eating, really good recipes. Has that been sort of a big thing for you as a coach as well?
Yeah, I think so, Daryl. Like, I'm lucky I've got a real passion for cooking as well. So, I love getting in the kitchen. I love making new recipes. Only the other day, like Christmas is over, it's at our house this year again. So I was just, Googling new salads and things just to change it up a bit, sort of thing. And, it's a real passion. I'm lucky that I enjoy that sort of thing too. So, I think the emphasis on fitness and healthy eating, not only from a bowls point of view, but even from a society point of view in Australia, we've got great weather. Everyone's always out and about, walking, running, riding your bike, all that sort of stuff. There's, why not try and incorporate that into your sport? And, and there's, one of my passions, and I know Gary's the same. I'd be interested to see if, if you ask him the same question, where, if you interview him and when you do. But what we really want to see as new coaches and a new HP team, we want to see the Aussies the fittest team in the world. Walk into a club and, we're all our players are fit. They're at the peak of their fitness, and, can bring that element of their game, of their outside their game into, like a World Championships or a Commonwealth Games next year. So, one, it's quite, it's quite daunting, like to see a sea of yellow come in, but, if they're all fit and that sort of thing, then, I guess, other countries might look at that and think, wow, that could be something that we could adopt but it certainly helps.
Just want to ask you, now that you've transitioned from being a player to a coach, what has that been like? Like, has there been any strange interactions? Because, you were once a player, you're once part of the team, under the coaching and doing all that, and now you're actually on the other side coaching the team.
It's a really great question, Daryl. So I retired just before COVID hit at the end of 2019. So had sort of, I don't know about you guys, it was probably very similar timelines, but, COVID hit sort of in the obviously first half of last year, and we were in lockdown here for maybe 6 or 7 weeks, I think, in Sydney. So there wasn't a lot of bowls on. It was very unknown, obviously. So last year I hardly played and loved it. Loved lockdown. I thought it was the best thing. Got lots of different things done, and pardon me. And I just enjoyed the break. You know, for the viewers out there that don't sort of realise, you know, the Australian schedule. All our players are all sort of contracted to clubs out here. They have club, district, zone, state commitments on top of all their Jackaroos commitments as well. So, you know, doing that year after year, it was exhausting, you know, and it was the same all the time, you know, for me, sort of thing. So when I did retire, I actually really enjoyed having some downtime, having a lot of time at home. So lockdown was really good. You know, I was getting out in the backyard and, you know, getting the weights out every day and doing things like that. So for me, I didn't miss having retired and all that sort of stuff, because my teammates weren't playing any events anyway, and they still haven't.
Sure.
They still haven't. So it's you know, I missed the connection, I suppose, from, you know, we have a lot of chat groups and things like that. I probably missed that side of it. But then I came on board with BA as the assistant coach, so I'm back being involved in a different role. So I feel like I'm back involved anyway. So I sort of, you know, that sort of ticked that box. But from having been a player and being really close to the team, and now being a staff member, where, you know, I guess that's going to be, you know, and I haven't done it yet. We actually haven't got together. We've rescheduled camps and Commonwealth Games trials and things like that. So our first camp, hopefully, is in about 4 weeks' time. So that is going to be a bit of a different challenge. You know, we haven't all been together, where I've been on staff and I'm now an Australian selector and working with my teammates. But, you know, the great positive is that I know them so well. We've all got a really healthy respect for each other. And that, you know, I'm super passionate about assisting them, helping them and supporting them in any way to, you know, for them to reach their goals, and for the team to reach our goals as well, you know, sort of thing. So I'd give my left arm for the team to be successful. And I know what it's like, you know, like it's a great feeling, you know, when you put all that preparation and effort and doing all those little 1%ers. And for it to come off, there's no better feeling. So I feel like I've got some goals to kick from a coaching point of view. You know, like a couple of coaches have said to me, you wait until one of your players wins a world title or something like that. It's as good as winning one yourself. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
I guess just kind of staying on the same subject of breaking away from the same old. Obviously, we spoke about it. You competed in all of the big events, the biggest events in the world. Was there any like small or like local, like hidden gem tournaments that you actually found a lot of enjoyment from, aside from the big ones?
Yeah, good question. It's probably not small, but it's not at the international stage as such. But I was really fortunate to have played for many years, and still will probably, in the Australian indoor. So and the Golden Nugget tournament at Tweed Heads. So Tweed Heads has been a really great hunting ground for myself. You know, like I remember going up as a junior and watching some of the players at the Golden Nugget when I was 14, you know, and just thinking, wow, that's awesome. You know, look at the crowd. There's like a couple of thousand people here watching a tournament on the Gold Coast. So went on to win. I was really lucky enough to win five nuggets and went on to win 6 Australian indoors. So the Australian indoor to me is a really great event. The winners of the Australian indoor go to the World Cup. I've played in that quite a few times, but I guess on an Aussie scale, the indoor and Tweed Heads Nugget is up there, sort of thing. I'm not sure whether your viewers would know what those are.
They might know what the Golden Nugget is for sure. Ryan's competed in it, so if they follow Ryan at all, they kind of know what that is. But it's, from what I've seen, it's a fantastic event and really big too.
Yeah, Ryan sort of has more jacks that sort of end up off the rink than on it.
True.
I've seen some go through the window. I've seen him break a couple of jacks at the Nugget, and the crowd just love that stuff. Like he draws a crowd, that's for sure. So, but his drive draw game, probably to me, is the only player that I've seen successfully that's been able to incorporate that into their game was Rob Perella. So. Fantastic drive, used to stand his bowl up, sort of turn it in his hand a little bit, and just come back to the draw and draw within, Yeah, so Ryan's probably the next best player that I've seen be able to do that.
I liken it to some sports here, like baseball. When people are hitting home runs, everybody loves it. It doesn't necessarily win you games, but it can be excitement because it's that big explosion, that big play that everybody can see. It's kind of interesting to see. Ryan's drives are always something to behold. Everybody wants to see one because they heard so much about it.
Yeah, man, he's good at it. Like he uses it well in his game as a weapon. So yeah.
Right. So again, talking about the fact that you've played in so many different formats: BPL, UBC, indoor, overseas, Commonwealth Games, etc. We've talked about it on our program. There's a lot of talk about the international game, Commonwealth Games, and World Bowls, and the fact that it's really hard to market. It's really hard to watch sometimes, especially for the casual fans. People like Luke and I, who are kind of hardcore, we might just watch it anyway, regardless of what's going on. But for those that are just tuning in for trying to bring in a new audience, sitting down and watching an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour game of bowls can be very, very difficult. Since you've played in all these events, is there anything that you see that would, I guess, make sense at an international stage to improve the game, even at the Commonwealth or World Bowl stage?
Yeah, I think I think you're right. Like sitting down and watching a 3 hour game of, even a team game, probably especially, but even a singles game, we need as a sport, and having been on the board of World Bowls, we need to as a sport keep coming up with shortened formats of the game, exciting formats like every other sport's doing. You look at the Olympics a couple of months ago, they had rock climbing, they had surfing, they had skateboarding. Rugby sevens has changed formats, within their sport to, I think they're 15-minute halves or something like that. So if we don't move with the times, like our sport will get lost, sort of thing. So, BPL, for Bowls Premier League in Australia, has been a wonderful event from a televised point of view, from a playing point of view, to sell the game. It markets really well. The way in which the TV production sets it up and things like that, great commentary, sells our game really well. But I think from a player point of view, I agree that we need to do it. And even at Commonwealth Games next year, it'll only be red and blue bowls. So the countries will only be playing with red and blue bowls. It's another topic. But it's a great spectator selling point, so very easily identifiable with the teams. But from a playing point of view, you don't find sometimes that the best players always win in those formats. So, the top players need to probably change their game plan a little bit too, I guess, to try and, work out the format. There's a lot of, as you guys know, there's a lot of luck involved in bowls. There is at times. But I think if you're in the area with your shot, any result that comes off you're in the area, then happy days. But we need to do it. I really think we need to do it. Our sport at a Commonwealth Games level is now not a core sport. So we used to be one of the 5 core sports, and that's not the case now, only over the last couple of months. So it comes down to the country that the Commonwealth Games are the host. They actually get to choose what sports, and we may, as a sport with bowls, miss out on a Commonwealth Games depending on the country that it's played in. And that's, we're not an Olympic sport, so that could be detrimental to bowls, from a funding point of view and from a profile point of view. that's not been great news. So even more reason why we need to keep implementing shorter formats of the game and make it exciting for the viewer.
I guess the last question that I have for you, and you kind of answered it already, but what do you think that the Commonwealth Games means to the sport?
It's to the sport, or to me, it was our Olympics.
Yeah.
It was, and I think the majority of the players would have the same answer. The top players in the world would have the same answer. It is our Olympics. So as I said, detrimental. If we weren't in the Commonwealth Games, it would be really have a really negative flow-on effect for bowls, sort of thing. So, I'm sure your guys, your funding for your country, say in Canada and other countries, your funding's dependent on performance-based, isn't it? So we're the same in Australia. Funding would be cut, jobs could be lost, but it's the pinnacle for me. I mean, World Champs and Commonwealth Games are like you talk to Olympians that go to the Olympics and it's like the best thing they've ever done, and for us, I guess the Commonwealth Games is also because it's a multi-sport event, but winning a world title's pretty well on a par with that or playing in a world championship. So, yeah.
I guess going back to something that you just mentioned, maybe to wrap things up, there's lots of changes that are happening at the international level that they're trying to make it a little more marketable, a little more visible, easier to understand, let's say. The colored bowls, red and blue. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of change for the Commonwealth Games?
Look, I think it's a great idea. Like you look at Potters, like I've played at Potters many, many years, and easily identifiable. They've got obviously the green and the red, blue and the red. Yeah, it's from a TV point of view and from a marketing point of view, I think it's great. From a team point of view, there are a few sort of, issues, I guess, that come up with that. Number one, like I know our team won't be just taking one model of bowl over to Leamington. So if you've got to have a red and a blue set, and maybe, for example, one of our players might take a Tiger 2 and a Tiger, then you've got to have 4 sets of bowls. That causes issues from a manufacturing point of view. It causes issues from a, having to get them over there and carry them from a weight point of view on the plane and all this sort of thing. I believe there will be a pool of bowls over at the Commonwealth Games from manufacturers and things like that. Are you guaranteed, if you don't bring sets of bowls as a country, are you guaranteed to get the same set that you had last game in red? Maybe not. Someone might have grabbed them before you. Look, I think it seems to work really well at Potters because a lot of players have their own sets and generally, bring them themselves. But a lot of overseas players play with the pool bowls. Yeah. But there's only a handful of players that use it out of the pool bowls. We're talking countries and countries and countries in the Commonwealth Games relying on those pool sets. So, look, it's going to be interesting to see. But I think, again, from a marketing point of view and changing our sport from a television point of view, it's a good idea.
It's interesting. We've had discussions about the bowls on our side as well. And while I totally agree with the marketing, going back to the mental side, do you have any thoughts that some players may find it really tough not to play with their own set of bowls? It's like get over that mentally, that I've got this random set of bowls, even though an ace is an ace or a tiger is a tiger, that it's going to be just that little bit of a bump in their game.
Well, I think definitely. If you bought 2 Toyota cars, are they the same?
Right.
Probably not. But from a mental point of view, I guess, and I'm probably, going back to the Potters when I played there, you get comfortable with the bowl in your hand and they can differ a little bit, like between models a little bit. So, when you're drawn to play in green at Potters, say, for example, but you really love your red set, all of a sudden that mental sort of thing kicks in. Geez, I wish I had the other set, but I think it's how you react to it really. And, I think on the slower greens, it probably won't be as much of an issue sort of thing. So that's how you react to it. Just if it feels comfortable in your hand, and you just play with what you've got. So
awesome.
Well, Karen, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on the show. On behalf of myself, Daryl, and Michael, the third part of the show here, thank you very much. We really do appreciate your time and you coming on the show to talk to us today. I wish you and your Jackaroos the best of luck going forward. Hopefully everything works out with COVID and whatnot. And I guess just thanks again.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Anytime you want to have a chat, that's great. Really love what you're doing for the sport and promoting it. It's great. And getting overseas players and things on there. I think it's some great lessons for the viewers out there to be able to get some tips and things off different players from around the world. So well done, you guys, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.